So 2022 is done and it's report card time. And I thought you were going to score.
Ask a better question, you get a better answer.
Hi guys, welcome back. So let's get into the report cards for the autumn internationals. There have been so many games. I'm going to chop this up into the Six Nations teams and the Rugby Championship teams. Otherwise it'd just be too long. So let's get straight into it with England, starting off with that 1 point loss to Argentina. It was a thoroughly dismal display from England in their opener. Players admitted they hadn't fallen into the international systems yet, and to be fair, the team cohesion did improve throughout the next couple of games. The English forwards looked pretty powerful for sure. They put themselves in really good scoring positions, but very questionable attacking edge and individual speed in the back line. They were a big problem. They couldn't get the scores, and question marks started straight away on Smith and Farrell. Didn't really play that well together. Are they just taking up an extra space that could be for a dangerous back? And they didn't put the game to bed, and Argentina hung on in there and got a famous victory at Twickenham. Then on to the Japan game, which I watched live, and they executed this one very slickly. Japan were completely overpowered. They look overawed. They definitely needed to improve. They weren't a good team on that day for sure. So that was a good boost for England, but the tests were still to come. Then we get that crazy 25-all draw against New Zealand. And New Zealand started this game like an absolute train, and after 70 minutes it looked all done and dusted with a big win coming up. And until that point, England had looked completely toothless, but the subs came on and some of the old guys, Ben Youngs, Mako, and then Big Will Stewart, seemed to have wound themselves up into a kind of frenzy and had a crazy 10 minutes against, albeit 40 men of New Zealand, caught them napping and scored a stack of tries to get that draw. Should they have kicked the ball off at the end? I don't know, I'm 50-50 on that, but certainly they sneaked a draw there. Then it all hinged on this South Africa game. Could they come up with a roaring performance? Eddie looking to really wake up Twickenham, and no, it was absolutely abject, a crushing defeat. South Africa's strengths, their physicality, aerial and set piece, were the areas that England attacked, and they lost all of them and got pretty much humbled. It was a complete destruction, definitely. So apart from that good victory against a young Japan, out of their depth really, most of the games against Argentina, New Zealand and South Africa, apart from that 10 minutes against New Zealand, was pretty dire. There is an investigation going on into that, but that's pretty standard for the RFU anyway. But let's see if they back Eddie this time or they actually change something. So let's move on to Ireland, and much was expected of them. They never really quite hit the heights, to be fair, but they won all their games. They won ugly. They were certainly searching for that team cohesion that they've had in the past, particularly in New Zealand. They haven't quite got it, but winning ugly is something you have to do sometimes. Come the Six Nations, if they're still a bit of a mess, maybe coordination-wise, there may be a few questions, but I don't think there's a problem here, really. They can't stay at a high the whole time. Now, the first game was Ireland 19, South Africa 16. You might not be rushing out to buy the DVD for that, not that you buy DVDs anymore, based on pure entertainment, but it was a dogfight. The Irish fans, it was all about getting the win against South Africa, who are such a tough team. South Africa had plenty of possession, but Ireland stayed tough, hung on in there, sneaked out the win, and that's exactly what they're going to need if they face them in the World Cup. Now, I was going to review the Ireland-Fiji game, 35-17, but I got so many messages saying, just don't bother, it was rubbish, that I didn't really bother. I did watch highlights and stuff, and it pretty much confirmed it was true. That wasn't great, and finding flow against the Fijians has been hard for all the sides that have faced them. Then we get the last one against Australia, and it's a clear trend in this series. Despite trying so hard, they couldn't find their flow, but they get the job done. 3 ones from 3, just move on. On to Scotland, and they had a very interesting autumn, losing by a point to Australia. Cool, they let that one slip, and they know it. They let a few games slip in this series for sure. They looked the most dangerous side, but again, reminiscent of the Argentinian tour, they couldn't get the job done. Against Fiji, again, another messy game against Fiji, as with Ireland, 28-12, and the fly-half situation was really weird. They started off with Kinghorn, then they went to Hastings, and then finally brought Russell back in. Then we had that epic New Zealand game, 23-31, and if Gregor Townsend was a fisherman, he'd have a long list of tales of the one that got away, and this might have been the biggest of all. It was a fantastic match, scintillating play because Russell was in. Goodness me, he was on fire, just showing how much better he is than any other fly half Scotland have. I don't quite know what the game was that Townsend was playing with him, but maybe it worked. I don't know. Is he going to stay in the team in the Six Nations? I certainly hope so, because he literally oozes confidence. He must have some sort of extra gland in his body that just secretes confidence. The opening blitz from Scotland, 2 great tries, and they should have battered New Zealand. They were all over them. If they'd got a couple more tries, which they should have, they'd have had a great win. But then they let New Zealand stay in it. In the last 15 minutes, New Zealand came alive and sunk Scottish hopes, and that's what they've got to improve. Games they should win, they've just got to get the job done. But they do put Argentina to the sword. Again, Finn Russell was on fire, just having a field day. Sure, a red card to Kramer definitely helped them, but they cut loose, scoring some great tries. Back 3 was on fire, Darcy Graham. So, such an exciting team to watch, Scotland, but they've got to get those wins when they're on top. That is their big goal for the World Cup. Doesn't matter how good you look, you've got to get the wins. Now, Wales' 4 games saw plenty of calls for Pivac to go here. He started off very badly when New Zealand literally just tucked the ball up their jumper and pummeled the Welsh forwards for power. It was a real dent to the Welsh pride. They were stinging after that one, and they came back with a good win against Argentina. Easily their best performance for sure. They look very comfortable. Thomas Williams, Faletau looked class. The change of position for Lewis Rees-Zammit to fullback looked promising. Some scary counter-attack. Yeah, it wasn't a big score, but they put them away pretty comfortably, 2013. Then we get the horror show against Georgia, and fair play to Georgia. Goodness me, they stuck in it. And Wales was so wasteful. They had the majority of possession in great positions, but they threw away so many good positions by just getting over-eager. Let Georgia stay in it, and then the Georgian set piece just crushed them towards the end. And then the great kick to win from Georgia. They go crazy, and it's another historic win against Wales in Wales following that Italy one as well. So that definitely wasn't good enough. And then what wasn't good enough again is Wales looked like they were crushing Australia. Australia, sure, they were shorn of so many players. Their team shape looked all over the place, and Wales were looking really good and making their passes stick and scoring tries, doing everything they didn't do against Georgia. Jack Morgan carrying like an absolute train. They were 21 points ahead at one time and then took their foot off the pedal. Yellow card to Tipperick. They crashed to a defeat. So it's this mental weakness, this lack of concentration that seems to be a big concern. Like I said, plenty of calls for Pivac's reign to end. Or is it just the fact the players aren't good enough, they're not stepping up? Let me know on that one. Now on to France. Very, very fancied, strong team. But they had a similar series to Ireland where they didn't quite find their flow, but they got their wins. 3 wins out of 3, a very tight one against Australia. Signs of home advantage for France that are definitely going to help in the World Cup as well. Wasn't the best for France, but again, they got the job done. Then they did the same against South Africa. Not the prettiest, but plenty of muscle, plenty of passion, home passion. Got the job done, 30 points to 26. The personal is there. And if you're winning and you've still got plenty of gears to go up, then that's pretty good, to be honest. And then a comfortable win against Japan at the end. So France in pretty good shape, to be honest. Now on to Italy, who had a fantastic autumn for sure. They started with a big win against Samoa. Plenty of signs saying they were looking like a tier 1 side, but Samoa aren't the greatest at the moment, so hard to tell. But then we saw the game against Australia, and that looked like they had arrived. They looked like an equal side to Australia in every aspect. It wasn't like they were just hanging on in there. Their attack, their defence looked really, really good. And Kapowutsu with a couple of tries. He was fantastic. And they fought fire with fire. They played fast, modern rugby. Great to see. True tier 1 side there, until they got kind of humbled against South Africa to tell them they've still got a fair way to go. But definitely improvements. They've got their 25-metre badge, but it's very dangerous swimming with the big boys, so they're going to have to improve for sure. But good signs for the Six Nations for them. Okay, so that's my report on the Six Nations size Autumn Internationals. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, and I'll catch you next time.